So we have Professor Dan Ariely, who is from Duke University, who is an expert about economic behavior.
Behavioral economics.
Behavioral economics. At one point, I will remember that.
You don't have to.
And our first question will be, what is behavioral economics?
What is behavioral economics? So, standard economics has some very basic assumption about people, that we always take all the information into account, we can combine it all, we can think to the future, and we always make the best decisions for us. And behavioral economics, in contrast, doesn't make assumption. It basically says, how do people actually behave? So rather than making assumption, it says, how do people behave? And when we put people in different situations, we see that people are not perfectly rational. We can't take all the information into account. We don't consider everything. We can't think long term. We have all kinds of other influences. And therefore, our model of human being is not the rational model. It's kind of an empirical model of how do we think about people. Now, I'll give you my summary of this. Because what happens in behavioral economics, we define, we say, oh, people are loss averse and people have this. And we have a list of lots of biases that people have. But what is our view of human being? We don't think of it as rational. So what is the model? I'll give you my version. It's not that the literature has this. It's my version. I think of people as an ancient Swiss Army knife. What do I mean by that?
What do you mean?
Yes, we have different blades.
So first of all, let's talk about the Swiss Army knife and then the ancient, vintage. The Swiss Army knife is not particularly good at anything. There's not a single task that you would say, if I want a screwdriver, give me a Swiss Army knife. And it's scissors. No, it's not that good in anything. Its greatness comes to the fact it does lots of things kind of okay in a small package that we can carry with us. The human brain is kind of the same way. Not that great in lots of things, can do lots and lots of things, and it's a compact case that we can carry with us. But I also said vintage. What do I mean by vintage? What I mean by vintage is that our Swiss Army knife has evolved in a period that is not now. We were cavemen, savannah, that kind of period. So not only do we have a set of tools that is not that great, but kind of okay in lots of things, our tools are not relevant for today.
True.
The tools that we have are used for that other environment. So we were never that great, but now we're not that great, and we have ancient tools. But now we come to the modern environment, and you say, what kind of tools do we have to deal with the environment? They were not that good, but now they're not that good and irrelevant. But that's what we have to rely on. And the question is, and what happens? What happens is that we have not great tools to deal with an environment, and because of that, we have bad outcomes, often.
And to add to that I feel humanity building processes that it makes the way that we act even worse.
So you're absolutely right. There are things like that. So think about two industries. Industry one is cars. And cars get better every year. How do they get better? By understanding what we are terrible at and trying to protect us from killing ourselves and killing other people. Rear view mirrors and seat belts. I'm just imagining the engineer saying, oh, we just gave them seat belts. Nobody will die anymore. And then we keep on surprising them. Said, oh, if we only had a side mirror, people would, we can't look outside like this, but if we had not enough, they keep on adding things that make it hard for us to kill ourselves and others. That's on the good side, right? You say the development in cars is such that we and cars together are better off, like we're doing better. On the other hand, we have technology like social media. And social media also gets better every year. But how do they get better every year? By also understanding human weaknesses. But instead of trying to plug the human weakness and get us to be better, they make us worse, right? Yeah. So us and social media are a worse planet than without it. So think about this scale between cars that tries to get us to be better and social media that tries to take advantage of us. And you can think about lots of other industries on this continuum. Where are we? Now, I think, by the way, that it's not written. Social media could be like cars. Like you could imagine a social media network that would get people to aspire to help humanity more, that would help them support each other more, that would create less loneliness. You can imagine it. It's just not what we chose to do.
It almost seems like there's not an easy monetization in order to create those. There's not an incentive to do those right processes.
Yeah. If you think about this distinction in cars and social media, With cars, the downside is very noticeable. People die, people get injured. It's very easy to notice and to feel that we need to take action. When you think about some of the other topics, the downside is not as clear. Now, if you ask the question, how much downside is there in social media compared to tobacco? But imagine we did a class action lawsuit against social media. And we tried to quantify depression and jealousy and polarization and lack of trust in the government and lack of trust in pharma. And we quantify all of those. There's a good chance it will be much worse than the settlement with the tobacco companies. Yeah. But it's not as visible, not as easily measurable, and so on. So you're absolutely right that a lot of the things that we're doing now, especially when it comes to our minds, it's easy to monetize human weaknesses than human progress. And the downsides of that are not as measurable, so people are not as against it.
Yes, so one of the things we see is that the rise in depression and anxiety, especially like among students. And Laurie Santos, like in Yale University, she did a research where she found out that students that go, like to the university, they're supposed to be like thrilled. It's the first semester. They should be, running down the meadow of Yale, and they're feeling so depressed and so overwhelmed. So the whole idea is actually how do we give them tools and practices to deal in an everyday life, which is supposed to be easier. But now you're saying that the Swiss Army that I have in my mind is not helpful.
So there's lots of things we can do, right? And you can say, okay, we have this terrible environment. Let's try now deal with it in the best possible way. But a more important element is to say, let's just build another environment. So if you say, what is the environment that these students are in? Some of it is physical, some of it is digital. And then you could say which one of those things. Okay, so they get depressed, and we can solve it a little bit, but letting them run in the meadows, or we can give them Prozac or something. Or you can say, let's do something more fundamental so that the environment that they grew up in is not as negative. I prefer the
second,
the environmental change, because I think that changing people is harder and not going to be as successful.
So I think that your mental actually is changing now. And I just heard the CEO of Tinder saying that the Gen Z are actually not willing to swipe for dating, and seeing in New York all the membership clubs booming
what does
crazy.
It mean they don't swipe? They don't open the app, or it's too much work to swipe? What does it mean?
They just don't. It makes them cringe. They just don't enjoy the swiping and evaluating other people by it. And it's so easy to see in New York. There's so many membership clubs opening that people are paying membership in order to go. You see running clubs appear, so many social activities. There are like people gathering in restaurants for dating and learning, having matchmaking happen there. So I think that there are actually a lot of shift into that. But I think companies, and I wish the CEO of Tinder, because he said people want to do it in real life. My concern is that he's not going to actually solve it, but is going to create some workaround that is not really going to solve it. So wondering if you had the opportunity to do an experiment in a place like Soho House, Equinox, one of those places that have a community of people that are gathering in real life, how can you nudge them maybe to start to have the communication with each other?
So first of all, my version of designing thing always goes back to the Swiss Army knife in some way. And basically, I think I want to start with some principles. And I want to ask, what are people good at? And what are people not so good at? And those things give me the initial starting condition to say, so what do I want to build? So let's think about dating. Some people are really good in first impressions. Some people are not. And the people who are good in creating self-impression probably don't need a lot of help. The people who are not so good in self-impression maybe need some extra help. I would say, do people even know how to have a date? Not necessarily. No. Dating is a kind of an interview in which we're trying to see if we're a good fit or not. But what are the right questions to ask? I don't think people necessarily know. What is compatibility and so on? Just thinking very quickly about this. I would basically create a system where people would commit meeting multiple times. And I know there'll be some times that we get it wrong. Sometimes you meet somebody, say, I never want to meet them again. I'm quite sure about it, but I promised, so I'll do it anyway. Okay, that's fine. I can't offer a bulletproof method, right? We can only offer methods that are better than now. And I think meeting for longer and not trusting our initial intuition that much is one crucial element.
Wow, and this is like a remarkable idea what you're saying, because usually we go by our intuition and we say if this doesn't work, then it's not going to work. But you say
human intuition in general is not that good. Mm-hmm. Our trust in our intuition is completely misplaced. We have good intuition for things that are biological. Like we see a snake, we're afraid. We have a snake sensor in our brain, we're afraid of that. We get good intuition for things like chess or basketball or things we do a lot. But dating, even those of us who dated a lot, we dated 20 people, 50 people. It's not that much data. You would need thousands of people. So we have intuition, but it's not that good, and we never get to test it. Why? Because you very rarely have a terrible date with somebody and you say, oh, but let me give this person another chance.
Or not. You're ruining the whole perspective about dating now.
But if you don't if you always trust your initial intuition, you never know whether people you thought were really a bad match would actually turn out to be a good match. When is the only time you get to do it? Roommates in college in the US. So you get to be a roommate in college, and they put you kind of randomly with somebody. And you ask people, you say, how many of you are really good friends with your college roommate? Lots of people say yes. And then you say, how many of you thought from the first moment, first impression, that this is going to be one of your best friends?
Say no.
Almost nobody says yes. So, here's one piece of evidence. Hey, they just matched you randomly. It ended up being really good, but you were not able to predict. So that should tell us something. I would say I want people to question their intuitions. I want them to promise to get into a process that is not just about the initial intuition. And then I would want that process to have some real depth. One of the challenges with dating is that people shy away from them. It's a risky situation to say personal things about ourselves. So we don't.
So I agree with you so much so that I went to a reality show to be matched with someone to go through a process of 2 months, because I have no idea how to pick one person. And I know that I need to spend some more time with them to actually get to know them. But I think that these like swiping and going on first dates, like I would never go to the Bachelorette type of a reality show, because to me, it's not about having like quick and making the decision among a lot. It's more, I need someone to point out on someone that here you need to invest and then give them the opportunity.
I think that being vulnerable and intimate increases the chances that things would work out well for both people. But I think there's real revelation of information in that process. And if you say, okay, so you go on a date and you stay superficial, and then let's say the date is okay, so you do another one. At what point do you decide, okay, now I can... No, I think that if you start on a superficial path, it's very hard after 6 months to say, okay, we finished the superficial path. Now let me tell you what I really feel and what troubles me and so on. Look, being hurt is tough. And I understand why people protect themselves. But it's a very counterproductive approach. I think people should be very risky in dates. Reveal, share, be vulnerable, fail. And that's okay, because the potential for upside is much larger than the downside they're protecting themselves.
Brené Brown talked about the men in the arena, just going out there and getting dirty. I've been separated for 8 years now. It's very hard to find dates, because I feel that on one hand, you want to go very deep. On the other hand, you are very guarded. It's very true. But the other thing I find that there's so much choices all the time because of that method of swiping.
So there are lots of choices. We could talk about that. But I was on Tinder for a bit as well. And I made a decision that I will not have a bad date. And I basically said that it's my responsibility that every date will be useful and interesting. And I deeply believe that every human being has something interesting to say. Wait, I know you have something to say. I think that everybody has something useful to say. And even when dates, okay, it was turned out very clearly it's not going to go romantically. There's still a human being on the other side, and they still have something incredibly interesting and so on. And it was kind of my role to make that date good.
So my filtering process is by their profession. If their profession is something that I'm interested about, I know that I can pull an hour talking about it learning something. And that's also a way for me to get excited about the person and like be curious.
I'm worse than you. I look at the height. I'm horrible.
So women do look at height. We did some studies on height. It turns out that women are, estimate height as being very important. But imagine the following stuff. I come to each of you and I say, please give me names of some people you really love and some people that are just okay friends. You give me some names in this pile and some in this. And I go to these people and I say, please fill out an online profile. No picture, no name. And then I come back to you and I mix all of these pieces of paper. I say, please sort them into two parts. The piles of people you love and the piles of people, okay. How good are people at this? Not so good. And what it tells me is that we describe in an online dating platform are just not predictive of who we end up like. You wouldn't say, oh, this is the reason she was 5'7".
Exactly.
and this is the reason I did this. So at the end of the day, and I know you think about this a lot, at the end of the day, we take people who are experienced good, right? It's like wine. It says, like, we don't have a good language for people. And then we describe them on language that is easy to describe, but irrelevant. And because you said height, I'll just push you. What's your cutoff for men?
Oh, God. 6'2"?
6'2". Okay.
6 is okay.
6 is okay. So I'm 5'9". I'm not taking it personally. But think about happiness. Mm-hmm. Think about happiness, which I know you think about. Do you really think that me being 5'9" would dramatically hamper your future happiness if you dated me compared to somebody who's 6?
Probably not.
You have to say personally, but
yeah, it's true.
But it is.
But I tell you what's the difference is. I feel like the difference is when we sit and meet people and have a talk, then you don't measure their height. But once you see it on an app and you scroll so fast and you become numb, then that becomes like
So height is a really interesting thing that we use as a filter, which is fine. You can use lots of filters. But at the end of the day, it's not the most relevant filter because you could be very happy with a 5'11" guy. But you'll never see anyone like it. We filter on things that are irrelevant.
No, but that's exactly why we shouldn't be starting necessarily from the online. We are social being. We are looking to be offline. We are in all those communities. I am doing my morning walk in Central Park. There's so much correlation in the spaces that I'm in. Why not start offline and then use technology in order to reduce the friction? So if people do not know how to approach, we can introduce technology there and relieve that. But once we had that interaction, once we saw that the chemistry working, once we saw someone just like pass by us and like we are attracted to that person, which is so much more human, and introduce their technology in order to reduce the friction.
The challenge with technology is it trying to do everything just with technology. From a human perspective, it's not the right approach. The research on smell shows that when people go to a room and they meet people, they shake hands of people they never met, and then almost everybody raises their hands and smell the other person. Now you say to yourself, I don't do it. Like everybody that you tell this story to say, I don't do it. But you look at the videos.
Now I'm trying to think.
We don't do it consciously, but we look at videos of people doing it, and people do it. And the reality is that we have a good sense of smell. We think we don't, but we have a good sense of smell. We're just far away from the ground, but we can perfume like a tiny amount. We can smell. And smell predicts romantic attraction. It predicts friends. I mean,
an attraction.
Yeah. Now, here's something that is incredibly human. Smell. But we don't have a good language to describe it. Now, one day, if we had technology to describe smell, maybe it would be better. But the technology we have has reduced people to attributes that are easily described. And then it assumed that these are the relevant attributes, but they're not. So it's not helpful. I think that sadly, the real approaches to improve dating are not going to be that efficient.
That's fine.
It's fine.
I think where we need to solve it in order to make it effective is we need to make it sizable. So the company would be able to go through that path, even if it's inefficient.
To help people. So I like university. If you think about the time when people were pairing off and marrying young, university was a really good system. You got to know people, you got to work with them, you got to understand them in a bigger context. I don't want people to get married that young, but I think we need to simulate that in some way. By the way, the workplace used to be a good place to meet people, but now, of course, it's frowned upon. I am a big fan of retreat. I think if you go on a retreat to learn something and you meet people and you get to experience them in a whole bunch of ways, from making food, to going swimming, to doing classes, to participate and so on. I think that's a really good way to start to get a sense of the other person and see whether you want to take it.
And then you will meet people.
I think there's so much a simpler solution. Like these communities that we're a part of, they're actually in the area that we live in. And people are going there physically in order to exercise, spend some time there. And it's so correlated. And I think that those are ideal places. We talked about it, like in the retail space and also in the dating space. What's happened is we have the offline and the online. And for some reason, the offline is not leveraging enough.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think social clubs are a really wonderful thing because you've solved already some friction issues. You know that people live in the area. The question is, what are the experiences that you'll do there to elevate that? But the other thing is that you're thinking New York City. New York City has lots of these clubs. Not a lot of cities have them. So we need to come up with solutions that are not just about these clubs.
Obviously, there are some places that do not have it. I think that the more robust the cities like New York, you have many of them. I think the ones that do not have more communities. So even if they don't have the Chez Margot and Soho House, they have other communities from being a small town or a remote place. Most places have a gym or church or those type of places.
Gym I don't think is the right.
You don't think so?
No.
Interesting. Why?
I think gym is very good to evaluate attraction and probably smell.
But also type of characters correlation.
I don't think you get enough time. It's a very specific element.
Interesting.
Of the person. I think I would like something that is more rounded, it has more elements.
And I'm going to take you after this to Soho House and Chez Margot to show you what I'm talking about.
Very
and
good.
then you can explore and see, what the relationship there. Because one of the things are people, even if they're in a surrounding environment, they're on their phone. They don't even make eye contact.
Then it's not very helpful. So let's think about these questions to fall in love as an idea. It's not a specific question that you pick, but the issue is that our equilibrium for human discussion is not that good. So what happens when people meet for a face-to-face drink? They ask boring questions. Where do you go to school? How many brothers and sisters do you have? What is your, zenith or whatever? Not that interesting. What people really want to ask is any craziness in the family? Why did you get divorced? What's your favorite sexual fantasy? Things people really care about. But we're too polite to ask. These questions to fall in love to, and there's so many versions of them, are very helpful because they create a new rule for the discussion. I say, okay, are you okay with us on this dinner talking about these questions? I'll pick one, you'll pick one. Here are the rules of the game. And once you accept that, I'm not being impolite anymore. Because if there is a question here that says, what's craziness in the family? It's part of the game. We've both accepted the fact that when we are put together, we talk about weather and sports, right? Very boring, uninteresting. And we say, let's pick a mechanism that forces us to get to a deeper level of engagement. So I think there's lots of places where we need a system to take us out of our comfort zone and to do things that are more intense, but also more revealing and important and so on. So just going to the gym, I don't think it's there. I would like experiences that would elevate the demand from
that
people.
Makes sense. I was thinking more of the gym as a space that people are there in order to create that initial in-person connection to see. Because when you see a person, it's not filtering by the height, but there's some the way that they walk, the way that they interact, their lifestyle. Are they a morning person and they're in the gym in the morning or after?
So I would ask you the following question. Are those things really predictive of romantic happiness?
Not by themselves, but
I don't know.
I
don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. But if you say morning person versus night person, I don't even know if it's necessary. There's lots of initial filtering. We don't have to waste any time. You can filter out. And then there are a deeper filtering that takes effort and so on. And you're interested in filtering as quickly as possible the number of people.
So I wonder if you're excited about AI in the sense that when we ask someone a question, they might respond even not lying. They might respond with what they think it's true, but not necessarily being true. I think that what AI is going to introduce is we have these tools that we're using that we talk with them just to ask them questions, and we give them a lot of information. The way that we interact with them, not asking them specifically to find us a date, but just interacting them, asking them other questions. And there's a lot that tool is going to learn about what our preference. Thinking 10 years after, they would have so much information on what type of characters and then seeing like who connected with who and what worked, in the sense of they'll be able to potentially say and predict who's the right type.
So if I'll translate to my version. So online dating sites have a very poor understanding of people. They have some questions people answer about height and weight and eye color. Then some websites ask a bit more on personality and so on. But even the people who do, it's not very rich. And on top of that, as you said, it's about how people want to portray rather than what they have. Then you have kind of technology like ChatGPT that get to interact with us a lot and know what we ask it. But there's more interesting technology like character AI that you get to have, right? So you get character and AI, by the way, unbelievably popular in terms of the use for loneliness is very high of AI. And character AI is one example for such company. You go in and you can have a discussion with celebrity A, and the discussions are not like ChatGPT. They're not helping you solve a problem. They are social conversations, and people are using it a lot for loneliness and discussion and so on. But what you write is on the other side, there's a tremendous corpus of knowledge about the person. How happy are you, and what makes you happy, and what was the reflection of the day, and people talk. Now, if you say,
I find it very scary that there is like some kind of an AI learning my vulnerabilities and all my quirks and then answering the questions and learning me deep.
So imagine that model learned about you, but then was able to propose who would be a good fit. That's kind of beautiful. Yeah. That's kind of wonderful. Yeah. Or imagine it would learn about you and figure out which conspiracy theory you would be most likely. So the information is the information. It's a question of what do we do with it. I can see a world in which this training data helps people understand themselves better. So imagine that we could go back to character AI and say, so what do I really love? Help me understand myself. I think it could be good.
I'm trying to focus on that scenario and not the other one scenario. But thinking through that, knowing how human beings react to something, what would you recommend? Like if a company recommend a person, knowing that that person is exactly the person that I should date, how should they suggest that person in a way that I would be accepting to that? Because we know human beings not necessarily, if something is the right thing for them, they'll not necessarily accept it first time.
So first of all, I want to kind of share a thought before we do this, which is when you think about a couple, is it person one and person two? And the question is the fit? Or is the couple another entity in the relationship? And you need to think about all three of them, person one, person two, and the couple. And I think it's more of the of the three. I think the couple is an entity, because it's not just how you and I fit. There's probably lots of levels for us to fit and lots of levels for us to have a relationship. And some of those are going to be incredibly useful and some not. And I think it's the question of what is person A, what is person B, their fit, but what kind of relationships they can create from a whole set of possible relationship, and how do we do it right? So going back to your question, what I would like to see happening is to say to people, here is person Y, for the following reasons, and I think it's good to have what is called explainable AI. For the following reasons, we think that you would be a good fit with that person. And here is the kind of relationship that we think would work best for you. So it's not just about here's the other person and go wild. What we're asking you is to test this theory and come back to us and tell us whether it's right or wrong. It's a journey for the person to understand themselves, to learn whether this is good data and so on. But I think it's also important to say, what kind of relationship are you hoping? And by the way, it's more important in our stage of life when you kind of in chapter 3, and you know, when people have kids and so on, there's other constraints. When you don't have kids, the flexibility of having a relationship.
It's the flexibility, and I'm sorry, and also more. I feel that I'm more judgmental because I'm doing what you're telling me not to do, because I'm so quickly not to accept certain kind of behaviors.
That's
because
okay. Young people are judgmental too.
Yeah, it doesn't separate.
Yeah, young people. It's
no, but it's not about this. When you're in when you're in chapter B, you have less constraints, right?
Yes.
So the freedom to create your own relationship is higher. Mm-hmm. You don't have to take a mortgage together. I mean, even people who are younger and get together and have a family and so on. There are also lots of different types of relationships. How much are you just going to be yourself as a couple? How much do you keep on spending time with your friends? I mean, what dependencies do you create? The All or Nothing Love book by Eli Finkel. So he has this book, and it's actually very, very good. I think he says there are 3 periods in history of love. There was a period in which people got together because it was efficient. 2 people rather than one. Somebody takes care of the kids, sleep together, warm each other. Kind of, it was a working relationship. Kind of Fiddler on the Roof, right? Mm-hmm. After 30 years, you ask me, do I love you? And we never thought about it. But it's an economic efficiency. Then we came up with love, and we say you marry because of love, and that's the reason. And it's not just about efficiency and so on. And then we came out with a period of self-actualization, where you say, not only do I want to love you, and not only do I want to be an economic functioning unit with you, but I want you to help me become a better person, and I want me to make you a better person.
Is it asking too much?
Yeah, exactly. And what Eli shows is that it's asking a lot. On average, it doesn't work. When it's work, it's amazing. But for most people, it doesn't work, and then people get disappointed. But that basically says that we need to architect the relationship and say, okay, so what kind of relationship can you actually have with this person, right? Is it the self-actualizing relationship, or is it something else? You need to keep other interests and other friends and other sources of resilience. I think that we haven't really thought enough about what kind of relationship I would, like, imagine I was your dating coach and you would ask me to look at 5 guys and I was all knowledgeable and I understood them and you and so on. What relationship would I recommend for you to be with each of them? It wouldn't be the same. Right? Maybe that's what AI would let us do, is to think about not as just us and them, but also the interaction between us.
Interesting. So also maybe potentially recommending us activities to do together and
lifestyle.
Lifestyle.
Like take something simple. Modern life demands division of labor. It's very sad, but people get together, then they have kids and mortgage and payment and so on. And in the name of efficiency, we divide the work. You do this, I do this. And the more you divide the work, the less connected you feel. Like in the worst case, one person takes care of the kids, one person takes care of finances. And the 2 never meet under the guideline of efficiency. Let's be efficient. But they never get to share. They never get, they don't, it's as if they don't live together, don't progress together. That's a very bad way to have a relationship. Like you can say, okay, so yes, it's not efficient for me to tell you about what I'm doing with the kids. It's not efficient for you to tell me what you're doing with finance, but it's not about efficiency. We're not trying to have shareholder returns. We're trying to be happy.
I'm trying not to pull it to the work-wise, but definitely I think even for shareholders in the long run, when we try to be so efficient and we do not allow people to communicate throughout the day, and we're trying to reduce the amount of meetings there are, yes, maybe in the short term you're saving, but I think in 10 years from now the company would not exist. So
I was thinking short term shareholder value, not long term.
So going back to how you said you think you need to explain to the individual why AI suggested the match and potentially like also offer a lifestyle, would you keep it very detailed, or would you keep it kind of fuzzy and give them some idea but not all the details?
So we did the following study a long time ago. People invested in the stock market, and we took a year and a half and we cut it into, like, you would jump to the next month. And it was based on real data from a period before. And some people had a human agent that for every period recommended some stocks, and some people had a computer agent. The advice was the same. It was just, but some people experienced it as a human agent, some people experienced it as a computer agent. And on period 13, the agent made a huge mistake. And then the question was, who would people forgive faster, the human or the computer? And people forgive faster the human. And the idea is that we know that people are wrong. We meet people, we see people, we know that people are wrong. We're forced to see people again. With computers, we have a problem. When it's wrong, we say, where else is it wrong? Like, what is going on here? How did it make this mistake? We don't have a good model of being wrong. So part of the issue that we're talking about, for me, is trust. The idea is that if I had an algorithm that recommended people to you, that algorithm would always give you things that you don't predict would work well. And the question is how much trust you would have in that system. And I need you to have trust. If you go to the meeting with mistrust, it won't work as well. So I don't know how to answer your question. I know that what I will try to do is to figure out a system that would create high trust and also would allow you to forgive mistakes. Like if you go back from a date that ended up not being great and the algorithm recommended it, how do I make it so that you don't say, oh, the algorithm is broken, I'm never using it again?
Yeah.
So I would think as trust as a main part of the mechanism, and I would try to figure out trust and tolerance for mistake. How do I create that?
And it's all intertwined, basically. It's like all coming together because on one hand, I feel that I will trust the AI more to make the decision for me because in the back of my mind, I will, as you were saying, it will make less mistakes. On the other hand, I will need like the human contact, like that old Swiss Army vintage way of thinking, because that's the way that I'm thinking.
You would want to understand how it's deciding, and you would want to know that it's relevant to you.
Yes.
So you would want that insight, but how precise to make it? I think it's also a question of will it increase trust or not, right? If the algorithm found out, what's very important to you is to date bankers. No, let's just say maybe it's true, but you don't you don't see it as such. So I think we need to think about how does the system get you to trust it, and how does the system get you to forgive mistakes, because there's no way that a system like this could be really good. It could be great, much better than now, but you can't get to 100% accuracy.
It's interesting because I went to the reality show and allowed them to make me because I trusted them. And a lot of people watching it are not trusting and keeps giving them shit because like they're thinking that they're doing it for the wrong reason, for rating and for everything. I always say to people, listen, it's so hard to match people that they can do their best intention. They'll still have a relationship that doesn't work. But so many, like for me, if I would have come to it not fully trusting them, I would not be able to give it true chance.
That's right. You can't. Yeah, and what's the base rate? If you give me now 200 people that want to be matched, what's a good base rate of the best experts? It's clearly not 100. It's
But there's
lower.
also an advantage of not giving people enough information because we fill it in, right?
Yes. Well, so when you don't have a lot of information, we fill in the missing parts, but we fill them in overly optimistic. And then in online dating, then you meet the person and you get disappointed. So as an example, somebody says they have a sense of humor. You say, the sense of humor, I love jokes. And then you meet them and it turns out they like knock-knock jokes. So, they think that something else is funny. But if somebody says, I have a great sense of humor, you wouldn't necessarily think, there are 20 different types of sense of humor. I wonder if it's the same one that I am. You would think, or somebody says, I love music. Oh, yeah, I love music too. Maybe they're like, something very esoteric. So we fill the gap in over-optimistic ways, and then we get disappointed. And it turns out it's something people don't learn. Like, it's not as if you say, I've done on 10 dates, and every time I fill the gap in ways, and I'm still... Maybe I should stop doing that. We can't. It's very, very natural.
There is a term that we go a lot to, that we call it the permission to be human, that Tal says, and that's basically that, because all of a sudden, it's the idea of need to go with compassion and seeing the other person and not coming with this kind of premonition, how I think they're supposed to be, but just let them be who they are, which is very hard because, we have these biases, how it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to work, and my mind is already set in a certain way.
The question about allowing that person to be who they are, now we're out of the initial dating. We all admit that our weak points are also connected to our strength. And so on the things that we are extreme on, they come with good and bad things. I'm good at what I do professionally. I also work a lot. These things come together, and it's very hard to say, I just want that one, but I don't want that one. They come together. And I think it's kind of absolutely crucial to understand that the weak points are also part of the strength in most cases, right? So I think holistically to the perception of the other person, and basically saying, I'm not going to think about features because they're all intertwined and connected. Do I love the whole package or...
There's something that I learned from you that I apply now in the way that I do relationship, both dating and non-romantic. And that's, there's something to learn about whether we should play hard to get or not. Do you want to share?
Sure. So what is hard to get? Hard to get is about getting people to put somewhat more efforts into pursuing the relationship. It could be all kinds of things. I mean, people usually think of it as in the context of sex, but it doesn't have to be in the context of sex. And this fits very much with the research on what is called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is think about the following idea. Do our preferences, what goes in our mind, cause our actions? I like this, I do this, I like that. Or is it our actions that change our preference? Kind of an old question in psychology is, do we run because we're afraid or we're afraid because we run? And the idea there was, we're afraid, we start running, or we see a tiger, we start running, we don't feel emotion yet. Only later the emotion comes, and then we ask ourselves, why are we running? So, it must be this tiger, I'm afraid. And it turns out that both of those are correct. Our emotions are very fast, they drive behavior, and only then we interpret them. It turns out that our actions also tell us who we are. Like we walk by the street, we give $10 to a beggar, often, I'm a good person, look at me. Like our actions define how we think about ourselves and our preferences. In that regard, playing hard to get is an interesting strategy, because you say you're going to get people to do more actions. Does it change how they think about themselves? And the answer is yes. So playing hard to get basically gets people to believe and pay attention to the fact that they really want that other person. So you say, I just did all of this effort. Why did I do it? It must be because I do that. Now, I think there's lots of versions of playing hard to get, but I think that the mindset of playing hard to get is an incredible, important mindset, not just for dating, but for life together. I don't mean that if you and I are together, you make me work, but I think the mindset is that people need to internalize and basically say, I'm not taking you for granted, and I want to put the extra effort into showing you how much I care, and that effort translates not just for you, it translates for me as well. So let me just say one last thing. So people say, love is work. I think that's a mistake. I think it's a bad framing. I think people should say love is a hobby. And what I mean by that is that we should all think about love as something we enjoy the process and not about the outcome. If you think about this sentiment, love is work, it's not a good sentiment, because it says, I'm going to do something I'm not enjoying for an outcome that I want. When you say it's a hobby, it's a very different approach. It's like pottery. You say, I'm going to enjoy the process. It's not about the quality of the pottery. My quality would never be that good, but I'm going to enjoy trying it out, and I'm going to enjoy learning, and I'm going to enjoy the nuances of that. And that, I think, is a good mindset. It's basically saying, I want to learn how to love you the way you want to be loved. And I want to try it out and learn and figure out new things. And I want to become an expert in it and understand the nuances and so on. And I'm going to enjoy the way. I'm not going to do it so that there's an outcome. I'm going to enjoy the way.
So the way that I took it into the way that I behave today in a relationship, my starting point was I felt like I was a weight on other people. So at the beginning of the relationship, I would try not to make them do any effort for me, and I would try to be as easy as possible. I don't know if that was your experience, but I was trying to not put any weight at the beginning. And once I understood that by not doing that, I also do not allow them the opportunity to connect to me and to feel something from me, I started releasing that, and I started to understand that I need to allow them to do it both for me and for them, and to create a meaningful relationship. And I have to say, you played a part on my experiment of trying to get out of it, because there was a point in time that I needed you to show up for me, and it was something that took you to fly somewhere. And I remember you calling me and say, if it's important to you, I'll do that. And do you remember how I responded?
No.
Wait a second. The two of you were dating? What's going on? Yeah. Yes. No.
Yes.
Later, after that.
We can talk after.
Okay.
So I responded to that, trying to figure out ways to work around. I was trying to figure out ways to work around that you would not need to fly for 3 days for me and to do virtual. And so I told you, like, let me check what I can do to work around so you wouldn't need to make an effort. And then after a while, I called you back and said, yes, it's important to me. And you showed up. And I feel we're much more closer through that experience.
That is so romantic.
I didn't remember the middle part. I remember coming, of course.
Yes.
Yes. No, I think in general, putting effort is a good thing. It's a good thing for the person to feel for themselves that it helps in the same way that we said giving $10 to a beggar makes you feel better about yourself. Putting effort for another person reminds you and gets you to think differently about them. So it's good for everybody.
And I want to add, actually, that we know that, they do the research where they give $10 to a student to spend on themselves or to give it to spend on someone else. And the sense of happiness and satisfaction is much higher when you invest in someone else.
So once I realized that I'm actually blocking from people to connect, then I was able to release that. So not so much playing hard to get in the sense of playing hard to get, but allowing other people to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I think we're trying to be not demanding from kindness, but it's not the right mechanism. So this question I asked you, I think it's kind of a good question to ask, right? I think people need to ask for more favors, do more favors. Like lots of people benefit from that. At the end of the day, you don't want to do favors all the time. So it's important to ask the question, is this really important to you? But if it is really important, then everybody wins by showing up. And I'll say one other thing is that I think we're at the low time of resilience. So for me, resilience is like an insurance policy for everything. I know that if something bad will happen, somebody would show up. That's kind of resilience, right? I have people I can call, like everything will be okay because if I'll need, I have people I can count on. I have a government I can count on. I mean, it used to be, I have friends, but all these sources are basically what gives us resilience. And it's kind of a tremendous power to walk around in the world feeling that if I needed, somebody would show up. So when you show up for people, you provide resilience for them. And if it's unexpected, it's extra powerful. And then there's a good chance they'll show up for you if you ever need it, but you also have a sense that this will work out. So investing in resilience, taking the people that are close to us and proving to them that we'll be there for them in all kinds of ways, unbelievably useful.
So it's interesting because what you talked about resilience and that feeling that you have people that would show up for you, what I've essentially created through not allowing people at the beginning, because I thought that if I would not put the weight at the beginning, when I would need that favor, then they would be there. And what came about is that I surrounded myself with people that once I needed them, they were not there. Yeah. When I truly needed them, the closest people to me were not there. And so that understanding...
You kind of trained them.
They didn't know how to react to me asking. And so now I really make the effort at the beginning. And obviously, it's not the playing hard to get. It's not the asking them for too many things. Being mindful in the way that I do it. But
please fly to Chicago and back to
fly me. But creating those meaningful relationships and using the beginning to filter also the people that would not. Because it's fine. Not everyone needs to.
So this is kind of a psychoanalysis, which is... I'm not particularly good at it, but I feel I have a very trusting and optimistic view of the world.
Yes,
and yes, I've been thinking about where did I get this, and I think one of the places I got it was in hospital. And you would say hospital, one of the darkest periods in my life. I was there for almost 3 years, terrible pain, but almost everybody was there and showed themselves up and exceeded expectations every day. So, yes, I'm in pain, not recommending it to anybody, but I also have this experience that the people around me are unbelievably on my side. they try, they work, it's kind of an amazing environment. And I had it in a very formative part of my life. Now, when do people get to experience such an intensity of people that are just there for you all the time, right? Night shifts, nurses, taking off bandages, all amazing, just amazing. So with all the terrible things from hospital, I think I learned that there's a kind of the possibility of really counting on people, and mostly they'll show up for you in ways that exceed expectation.
This is such a sense of hope. Like, this fits perfectly with the world of happiness, because, happiness, it's not that wishy-washy concept, but it's about the resilience, and especially everything that is happening now, like knowing that you can count on humanity in a way to do good things. It's makes me happy. Yeah, I think it's the sense of hope, and also there is a researcher. Her name is Barbara Fredrickson, and she studies emotions, and she talks love is an emotion of interconnectedness between people, but it can be many moments of connection. It doesn't necessarily need to be a romantic love. It can be friendship. It can be someone that you see in the street and ask him, "Are you okay?" And people say about New York, people don't care. So it gives faith back in humanity, and then in love, and then maybe in dating and relationships and love.
So there's a last question I'm going to ask you.
And I'm really curious about your answers.
You can answer it truthfully, because I'm editing this. So if I don't like the answer, I can take it off. You know me very, very well for many years now. I'm going to ask you a question that I get a lot. Maybe you'll have the answer. Why am I single? Not to put you on the spot, but...
Or a little bit.
Why do I think that you're single? So...
I wonder if you're thinking about...
Give me a second.
No, actually, it's nice.
I'm sweating here. No, but I'm just wondering if he's like thinking about how to phrase it.
No. He's thinking really about
I'm not. I'm thinking about this. So I don't think you'll like the answer, but I'll tell you the answer.
We'll edit it.
I think you're not allowing yourself to be kind of the playful, vulnerable person that you are in relationship. And I think it would take you a while, and maybe the help of somebody, and maybe recreational drugs, to be that version. So I think if you thought about kind of you being adventurous, playful, loving, kind of the way that fits you, I think it would have been much easier. It's just that you're not as comfortable as being that initially. That's my sense.
Okay.
But I want to add from my, being almost 52, that sometimes it's also age related.
So I'll tell you about me. I think that when I got married, I was an amateur. I even as a psychologist, I made amateur mistakes. Like, I look at them now and I say, "Oh my goodness, how amateur was I?" And it does take a while to get out of this amateur stage.
Do you want to elaborate amateur being what? Like the decision that you made, the action that you took?
The managing the day-to-day, being hurt, talking, not talking, ego connected. I mean, lots of things like that. So if you think about everybody has a potential for loving the other person. Where was I on this potential? Shockingly low, disappointingly low. So I think it takes time to realize, like, what's holding us back from deeply loving somebody. Lots of things about our psychology hold us back, and it takes a while to get rid of them.
If at all.
No, we have to
relate
solve
to
it.
that.
Yeah.
So just ending, like, one thought that you want, the people, the listeners or the viewers to take, like, summarize in a word.
So we start with the Swiss Army knife metaphor. So one tool that we have in that Swiss Army knife is that we're afraid of taking chances. And you can think about why. If you're an animal in the jungle and something good happens, you find a rabbit. How good is it? It's a little good. if something bad happens, a tiger finds you, that's really bad. There's a tremendous asymmetry between how good things could be and how bad. So we develop this attention to negative things. And we pay much more attention to the downside than the upside. But it turns out we don't live in that environment. If you think about dating, you say, if something is good, it's amazing. And if something is bad, how bad can it be? Like, it's not that, like, it's the opposite. And because of that, we should seek much more risk, but we have this intuition against that. So I think the question for me is, how do we get ourselves to take more risk is number one. How do we get to be more courageous when it comes? It's about who we date, and it's about how we date. It's about that. And then the second thing is, how do we get ourselves to not trust our intuitions, and therefore liberating us even more to try more. I'm willing to bet that if people became more risk-seeking and with less confidence, there'll be many more mistakes, but the long term will be much better.
I think we should go and
take
some risks. Thank you so much. It was,
of course, pleasure.
Thank you for joining us, our ride, and being our first
Which
guest.
is very, very courageous, by the way.
No. Happy to be here.